We meet again. But this time about a topic which is much more subtle and much more debatable because it's architecture. A friend of mine said that in architecture, every interesting question has an answer that starts with "it depends." If the answer doesn't start with "it depends," then it's not really interesting. And this is architecture. We don't have good or bad decisions. I may get ahead of me a bit sometimes, and I might be firing some more sharp statements, but in architecture, it all depends. All right? It all depends on the context, on the forces, on the non-functional requirements, on the legacy mindset, on the culture, on the skills, on a lot of stuff. Hello again. My name is Victor. I'm from Romania. I'm sick of Java. I'm trying a different style. I saw a lot of dragons in many companies throughout the world, throughout Europe. I'm doing, my favorite topics for trainings are refactoring architecture. I don't really have juniors in my workshops. And I think almost half of the workshops I do today are about architecture. This is what everyone wants because this can hurt people if you get it wrong. Yeah, Java frameworks. I have this community that I'm very proud of, which basically gathered a lot of very, very smart people throughout the world, more than 7,000 developers. It's bigger than the London software crafters community. It's bigger. It's even bigger than that. Yes, thank you. And if you want to join, it's very fun. It's very, we debate a lot. There is a lot of, yesterday, I had a meeting with the community. I spoke for 1 hour about functional programming anti-patterns. You can find it recording on my YouTube channel. After which we followed, of course, with half an hour of debate. They came with all sorts of ideas, and we have to argue. Anyone, does it happen that anyone here is already in the community? I can't believe it. There are 4 guys in the room. Thank you. So it's super cool. We get to argue together. It's super fun. Good. And family. Okay. So, quick, let's do a bit of warm-up to start with. Who here is working on a legacy monolith? Ouch, I expected less. That's like, what, almost half, not half, 1/3. Who here is doing microservices? Oh, half of you, more than half, clearly. Java, just to be sure. And Spring, keep your hands out. Okay. Who's not doing Spring in Java? Nice. Good. And who here has heard of Arc Unit? Few, very few, 10%, 15%. Okay. Let's start with a simple question. What would you build if you had to start from scratch and ship in less than a year? Would you build a monolith or 3 microservices? It depends. It depends. What's cheaper to build? No, never depends. I dare to argue that never depends. Is it cheaper to build 3 systems than, come on, man. 1 monolith. In 1 year, mind this, 6-12 months, not 5 years. 1 year. In 1 year, monolith is always the best choice if you have to ship something fast. So MVP, right? Doing some proof of concept, getting some money from the, okay. But what happens with the monolith a bit afterwards? I'm really wondering what this guy is doing over here. I mean, and I'm not making up this term. This is the most widespread architecture style in legacy system. It's called Big Ball of Mud. It's from C2. It's very old. A sprawling, sloppy, duct tape, spaghetti code jungle showing signs of unregulated growth and repeated expedient repair. Who here identifies? Thank you. And in desperate need of refactoring but lacking unit tests. So no one really.
You can't touch this.
Okay. So monoliths are faster to build at the beginning, but then after a year or so, maybe 2, maybe it gets in that stage of big ball of mud. We all know this. And now, maybe you are not now with your project, but who has been in such a system before? Oh, now there you're like 80% of you. Excellent. So the monolith after a while starts to stink. The velocity decreases dramatically, whereas microservices promise a better, steady pace of development. We know this, right? The trick is that you see at the beginning, microservices are harder to start with because there are all sorts of. I'm really wondering why did you say that it's cheaper to start with microservices? Do we like that much Kibana, Elasticsearch, Logstash, all that 20 technologies? I'm curious. So here is the thought. My system will be complex, so let's start with microservices from the start. The so-called next Netflix syndrome. You know, I'm going to grow big, so let's start with microservices. Well, that's actually completely wrong. You know, have you ever heard of Martin Fowler? He's the guy that, along with James Lewis, he was the main promoter of microservices 15 years ago or something like that. And from his blog, you should never start a project with microservices, even if you're sure you're gonna grow big enough. Start small and address the bottlenecks that you identify in your project. Those bottlenecks could be bugs, delays, public shame, developer leaving the company. When you see pain, act on it. Makes sense, right? It makes sense, but somewhere in the back there is someone thinking, if we don't start right, they won't ever give us the proper time to refactor. Aha, there you go. There were some heads like, yes, indeed. So let's start with microservices. Basically, let's steal from our boss just to be safe. Because we are basically paying more to get the same effect in 1 year, you see? All right, so someone famous once said architecture is the art of deferring decision. That's good, I like that. It goes in the idea of evolution in your architecture, but what I don't like is that it doesn't say when should you do stuff. You can't just postpone. So I would like to propose today pain-driven architecture. When you feel something fishy in your team, in bugs, in delays, then act on the problem, okay? So let me give you some example from another story. Have you ever heard of dependency inversion principle? Right? Yeah, with an adapter put in front of some shitty API, you do that when the API is shitty. Point number 2, if you're facing serious complexity, try to split it in layers of abstraction. The facade design pattern, right? If you are working with a legacy database, isolate your domain model from that humongous terror, okay? If you have a very complex domain, try to play the DDD card, domain-driven, and start doing rich domain models with encapsulation of entities and subtle things, right? But this is another story, not from the training. This, what I want to focus today with you is here. When the team grows and it gets painful, think of a modular monolith, we'll see. Think about events to decouple more the complexity, but this is a game you play later. You see, I've put them lower than those. So when you are really struggling, when the team gets big, the complexity overwhelms you, play these cards. And maybe microservices, we're going to see at the end. There were books about how to get there. And I really advise you read this book. It's quite interesting. It's quite interesting. So I saw 3 main strategies from going through from a large monolith to microservices. The first one is the Big Bang rewrite. I was part of a project that tried to rewrite a code base 12 years old with more than 3 million lines of code in 20 new shiny microservices. Guess what happened? It failed. $2 million on the window, it failed. 2 years of my life out on post-traumatic stress therapy, and then I started doing trainings. Anyway, the point is, any change request for the old system, you're going to either postpone, reject, or charge twice, because there are 2 systems. Right? And even if you succeed, break a leg, even if you succeed, it's very likely you're going to build the next mess with a distributed monolith, which is, I don't want to talk about that. You can find online, there are a very tightly coupled microservice ecosystem, which is worse than a monolith, really. The other a solution that works, however, is to, you have like this old client, you put a proxy in between, and then you look at your monolith, and if there are some parts which are pretty well decoupled already, then the next big feature that you have to implement in there, you overestimate a bit. What? Am I not allowed to say that, or what? And then we're going to rip that off, eject as a microservice, and have the proxy point to the new shiny service. It's called strangler fig pattern. That works. But the piece that you extract has to be already pretty well decoupled. You can't just crack an entity of 100 fields in a sprint. That calls for more slow-paced refactoring. And this is what I want to propose. Every serious monolith I've met, it keeps this kernel of tightly coupled entities and complexity in the core, right? Which to rip off, you can't just do it in a sprint. It takes months to do that. So this, as the first step towards microservices, I will build modules. And when the modules are already well decoupled, I will wait for that feature that I can overestimate to eject. Okay? So there is a new player to this game, Modular Monolith, which at some point, when you see that the velocity, the bugs, the shame, the pain accumulating, you might want to invest a bit more at that point to start modularizing. And then this modular monolith might give you the ability to easily extract a microservice when appropriate, or in some domains, might be even better than microservices. I'm going to repeat that. In some domains, modular monolith is better than microservices. Please meet a team of 6 persons. 6 persons, I just said, oh my God, 6 people. Actually, my daughter knows more English than me, found that persons is correct. There is a in dictionary, persons. Anyway, imagine 6 people working in a team, owning 4 modules, and then imagine 8 teams like that. All on one Git with several transverse guys, summing up 60 people, shipping in production every week. Who here ships in production every week or less, or more frequent? What 10% of you? These guys are shipping the work of 60 people in production every freaking week, okay? And their build takes 15 minutes. How that's you can write a PhD about this. How can you build the work of 60 people for 5 years in less than 15 minutes? It's absolutely rocket science what the guys did there. And there are other examples I've met in the workshops I did. For these guys, I actually asked them to for a half a day in which they taught me what they did. So, can you teach me, please? Anyway, so the modular monolith can actually be better than microservices in some domains. So, modular monolith, or like friends call it, Modultith, is this new architecture and it's nothing new, folks. I'm not coming here with the new hype. This is what we've been doing since the Linux kernel, basically. Okay, so it's nothing new. It's just basically the anti-hype of microservices, questioning, do we really need microservices? So this Modultith has a deployment architecture of a monolith, but the logical decoupling of microservices, an ability to extract the modules of microservices like that. I actually have a client in Netherlands that in 1 or 2 hours, if they push a button, a module gets deployed in production, gets moved on a Git with Ansible scripts. Don't ask me how, but in 2 hours, they're in production with that module deployed separately as a microservice. They automated everything. So when they need, eject. So if the big ball of mud is this tangled code base with tangled XXL database, and microservices are fully decoupled systems and databases, Modultith is somewhere in between, with code and tables which are decoupled. What is this? Let's see. Slow motion. Now, thought about that. How to start? Well, the first obvious thing is we need to decouple the code, right? This is the easiest part. So let's be junior again. Controller. Who has this kind of packages in their project? Who has ever seen this? Everyone, please. Okay, there you go. Thank you, Spring. So this is what I call the junior architecture, or the layered architecture. Okay, it works for a medium-sized project, small to medium. But then, if you want to make it, this is like a technical partitioning of your code. Notice here I mentioned layer, but they can also be rings. If I name this domain, infrastructure, and application, what architecture would that be? Domain, infra, application. What is that? You should come to my training. That's onion. Onion architecture with the domain in the middle, infrastructure and application, right? If I call the packages application in and out, what architecture would that be? Oh, come on, man. So, app, in, and out. What architecture is this? Starts with hash. Hexagonal! Shouted from the back to save you from the. Okay, good. So neither of these I want to do. I want to group code first by the domain area they belong to. Uncle Bob calls this the screaming architecture, that screams domain at you, not some layers that you find the same in every application. No, it talks in terms of domain with you. That's the first stage to do, okay? Now, of course, inside the functional modules, you can go ahead and do layers, whatever you want. Usually there are hexagons inside, but anyway. So what is a module? A module, I want to get to code as fast as possible. A module is basically a standalone application having its own business features to offer to the clients, having its own implementation that it wants desperately to hide from others. This is one of the biggest magic in Modultith. You want to keep as much code as you can hidden from other modules in your application, because you want to gain autonomy, you want to gain less to know about the others, you want to encapsulate as much as you can. Then, the module would have an API, either for external systems or for other modules, like a backdoor to other modules in the same deployment, right? A module would have private tables. We're going to talk about that, painful moment. And also, if you really want to do things properly, you could want to go full stack. Full stack. Backend and frontend. So, in which case the module team is owner also for the screens and maybe some components that others can import in their screens. Right? Micro frontends, if you heard about that, it's the same thing in modules. You can do the same thing. So this implementation is not accessible by any other module. There is an external API that can take messages or requests from outside, and there is an internal API for other modules, which can take method calls and, interesting, can publish events and listen to events. This map perfectly to the REST or Rabbit Kafka, correct? But there is this guy here. Once you are in a single deployment, you can expose an interface that other modules could fulfill for you. Ever heard of the plugin or microkernel architecture? Is when you have this kernel of complexity, and for various clients, you provide different customizations. And these will be like plugins into the core feature, into the core product, basically. This is what the module looks like, okay? Events, I'm not in the mood for events. Let's see if we have time for this. I feel more like that at this point. So let's look at this little project of mine. Folks, honestly, do you want black or white? Who wants black? Down. Who wants white? Okay. First of all, the first shock here is the name of the packages, right? Catalog, customer, inventory, notification, order, shared. Okay? And shipping. Okay. And I want to do a little bit of refactoring here with you. Right now we have green tests, like they should be, right? We love green tests. Green? Sure, green. Okay, excellent. And I want to do some little tasks here. There is a to-do here that you can play alone with your friends and your family. But I'm going to do I'm going to do just 2 to-dos from there. The first to-do goes like this. And I need to just 1 more minute to explain something. You see, catalog has impl. What? But this is a demo, right? There should be a hexagon, something fancy in there, right? Let me see. Look. Omelette de fromage. In from another module, in from REST. Out on event, out on infra to call some system. Okay, an app contains the use cases. Thank you, hexagon. Good. You get the point. Now, so another player to this game is a framework which is quite interesting. Spring, Modulith in the same sentence. What is this? 3 months ago, I think, a Spring Modulith project became mature. It's no longer incubated, and it's now officially supported by the Spring pivotal team. There is a Spring Modulith that you can use, and that will do some tricks for you. You're going to see the tricks along the way. For now, let us head to the first to-do. When you get the product, I am supposed to get, I already posted, did I post the slides on Twitter? No, I will. I need to provide, I need to present into the screen the stock of a product when I display the details of the product. Make sense? How many items are in stock? The simplest thing that you all bought from an e-shop, it's easy, right? What you might be still staring at is, what the heck is this? It's a record in a class? What is this? This is called vertical slice architecture from Jimmy Bogart. Is when you put the use case in the same class with all the DTO to come in and DTO to the request and response. I'm not going to dive into that because it's dangerous architecture. For now, just play with me. The DTO in here is in here. Coming in, this is the response, basically. And I want to have the stock. So let's get out of it. I want to expose the stock. Perfect. So the stock should be in the response. And the stock, should I get it from where? Well, let me try my best. For now, product. I have a friend here with me. It's called Copilot. When you see pink, it's the dog. Okay? So the dog says stock. Good expectation, great expectation, I could say. But doesn't work because I don't have stock here. So where do you think the stock is? Inventory module, of course. So the stock is over here. Hey, look, Ma, layers. Okay, so stock, there you go. We have a stock which, for the product ID, keeps the number of items. Make sense? Simple. Simple, simple. I have to get this information from over here into my endpoint over there. How to do it? Let's see. Well, can I be stupid? Of course I can be stupid. That's how we learn, right? So private final. I know, stock repo. What do you think about this, please? By the way, have you ever considered FBI? I mean, why FBI? And anyway, bad joke. Find by product ID, and then, what is this? No, I like to throw. What else? Throw, thank you. And that's a stock. Okay, bad collision, but basically from that thing, I can just get the stock items. Have you already given up on the get prefix? You can change Lombok, to blow up the get and set. This is my getter, surprise. Thank you, records. So this is my stock. Let me do it here. Stock. Thank you, and my job is done. Great job. Yes. And as I push the code, what the heck is this? Modules.verify. Where do you come from? Application modules. What kind of a, who the, uh-oh. So, spring-modulith came with some rules. So this verify over here, basically, we have some violations here, saying module catalog, this depends on non-exposed type, inventory stock repo. Wait, what? Let me do it slow motion because, yeah. Folks, we were in the catalog module, correct? By the way, is this presentation mode? Can I do bigger? No, just a second. There. We were in the catalog, right? Here. And we just injected into here the stock repository from over here. What's that smell? We broke the encapsulation of this module. We shouldn't be accessing this. We just put our hands on the most sacred thing in their module, which is technically the stock entity. Sorry. The stock entity, I have it here. S. This is what that module keeps most dear. This is their core domain model. I should never inject that in because I'm breaking the encapsulation of that module. What would the red team say? What? Red team? Yes, because that's managed by a different team. 3-4 developers are managing the inventory and maybe the customer and the notification, while the red team manages the catalog, the order, and the shipping. There you go. So I'm just stepping into the other team right now with this injection. So that doesn't work. So what should I do? I should get there through some public API of the module. Look how you can do this. We have this inventory module API, a class, which By default, spring-modulith wants to make it simple to start. So by default, the classes in the package, in the top-level package, are exposed. That's not going to scale, of course. So if you want to explain what do you expose to others, you can do some annotations, and you can allow the access to all of these packages and the sub-packages to other modules. To keep things simple, though, I'm going to stick with the default, and I'm going to say here a method. Let's call it public int. Yes, good dog. Good, almost. It did not learn yet that it's items here. All right. Please read again what Copilot generates. I beg you. Please read twice. The errors AI does when it generates code are so hallucinating. They read so well, so freaking well. I got tricked many, many times by. Right. And here, I'm not injecting over here in the get product. I'm not injecting the stock repository. I will inject the inventory module API. All right, like this. And through the respectfully, through the inventory module API, I'm going to get the stock by the product ID, and I'm going to get the integer, and I'm done. Knocking on the module's door. I don't have that effect, but should I search for it? No. Okay. So technically, right now, I'm injecting the inventory module API from over here. Let's see if I made something wrong. Why doesn't this work? It's already defined. Stupid me. OK, it was already injected. Done. So I've respected the encapsulation of that other module. Verify modularity is green. Makes sense what I just did? Right? I went through some strictly controlled API, which is exposed by the inventory module team. And in practice, if this were another team, I'm going to ask them to expose me or talk to the team to see how can I get, just like I would in the microservice ecosystem. Yeah? I'm going to just ask, how can I get the stock from you guys? Right. This is one to do. Let's see if I have time for the next to do, which is a bit more tricky. I will look in the order, and I have here in the input, please don't laugh, the order service, and the payment gateway client, and the payment gateway webhook, and the payment service, which, of course, have to do with payment. Thank you. And these things over here, please imagine, I need your imagination, please imagine this grew humongous, OK? And in an e-shop, they are humongous. So I want to extract these out of here. Basically, I want to split the module and extract outside another module called, you guessed it, payment. Amazing. Now, in that module, I'm going to just drop. Amazing job. The word was like, yes, yes, where are you? Payment. Amazing job. Great job. Run the test. Oops. Cycle detected. Huh? What cycle? Folks, you do realize that these things that fail here are tests, right? You do realize we are playing a dangerous move here, right? I mean, God knows what happens one day. Still, cycles between modules are tightly coupling these two together, and it makes it harder to track what happens where. Now let's see the exact cycle. What causes this to happen? I was in the order. In the order, I have the impl order service here, which needs the payment service here, like this, to get the URL to redirect the browser to. You know what I mean? You get redirected to some payment gateway to click, and pay, right? So the order service in the checkout flow technically wants to redirect the user to whatever URL this guy says. Make sense? Yes. Not quite. We just had lunch, Victor. Please downclock yourself a bit, right? OK, I'm going to speak slower from now on. The webhook API is the way that the payment gateway calls you back to tell you whether the payment was OK or not. Please don't laugh. And this payment gateway calls you back, and you call back into the order service. So there you go. This calls here, and that called here. Make sense? Ladies and gentlemen, we have a cycle. How do you break it? Please, but louder. Use an event. Use an event. We're going to play an event. Anyone other solutions? Merge it back. I mean. Love. Correct. Now, yes, love, but also mark his. He's right. Maybe this is so coupled to each other that separation was not the proper thing to do. That's actually one thing you can always change your mind. You can just drag and drop back, and you're done. Who here has ever merged back two microservices? Please. Have you ever merged two microservices? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hands. Have you ever split some code base in two microservices? There you go. So 7 people raised hands to merge. 30 people split stuff. This is not healthy. Something could be fishy. So merging microservices is hard. Drag and dropping this back, it's so easy. So you can get to explore the boundaries very easy. Still, events. Let's do events first. How should the event be named? Loud. Come on. You said event. Who said event? How should the event? Should talk slower? Okay. If we want to use an event to break this cycle, how should the event be named, and where should I put it? Folks, let me bring the code that will point you. Have a look at this. Where should the event be, and how should it be named? Order paid. Order paid, and where should it be? In the payment or in the order? In the payment, perfect. So in the payment module, I'm going to create an order paid, Java please, and record. Every class you create from now until you retire, please make it a record. Unless you're using GPA or Spring Bean. Anything else? Records. So that's a record. It's called order paid event, right? It's here. It's going to carry along the long order ID, and of course, don't laugh, Boolean, okay. This event over here is going to be fired here through some Spring Kung Fu. This? Come on, no. Publisher, thank you. Come on, dog. Yes, good. And then here, instead of the, but I'm not putting in the right place. Should put it in the webhook. Here, this, in here. And then let me see if the dog is awake. Come on, don't. Here. Thank you. Amazing job. Good dog. Good dog. So publish event. And then this is when I delete this line from over here, I break the cycle technically. The other side, the order service, can here, when order paid this, do good dog. And then here, no. It's called order. This is called prompt-driven development. You type just enough. Good. And then there are companies which are already having interview questions of prompting the copilot. I was like, what? Yeah. If they never use ChatGPT, we won't hire him. What are you talking about? Don't judge. All right, so run. Great job, amazing job. Time is, okay. So events, whatever that means. Okay. Do you see any other way to fix this? To break the cycle? There is one more way, but it's dark, and I'm afraid to demonstrate this after lunch. That could also work, but another module. Oh, wait. Do you have Uber in here? Uber? Do you have Uber in London? You do have, right? Yes, of course. Good. How small should modules or microservices be? Small, right? Do you guys know what PTSD means? Post-traumatic stress disorder, escaping from a big ball of mud. They still go to therapy. If you have in a team someone that just escaped a big ball of mud, they survived the big ball of mud, they will go for Nano. Thank you, Uber. Have you seen this picture before? It is the ecosystem of Uber. The moment they step forward and say, hey, we have 2,000 microservices, everyone's like, yay, 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 yay. 3 years later. Going too small is gonna hurt you because you're gonna swim in 100 modules. You're not gonna know where you are. It's gonna, right? And the integration of all, folks, it's after lunch, so let me make sure. Do you guys understand what this dot means? This is a nano microservice. And what does these lines mean? Dependencies, thank you. Can you imagine what happens if this goes down? And these dependencies are the worst kind, REST. Kingsley Hightower predicting monoliths are the future. Sam Newman, do you guys have read the Building Microservices book? It's the best book, in my opinion, about microservices. The author of the best book about microservices, microservices should be the last resort. Right? Monoliths were found to be cheaper by Amazon and faster by Stack Overflow. And this is 2020, after the hype of microservices. Okay? So another module, I don't want to get there. Right? I don't want to slice so small. But you can solve it with another module, you're right. Any other idea? Folks, it's after lunch. The dependency goes like this, right? One here and second there. What if I want to notify the order, I would put an interface in there. The other way around. Interface in there, which I'm going to implement from above. Because it's still confusing, let me just do that, okay? So, blow up the event. All right. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to revert back. Can I revert back? Yeah. What's the easiest way? I did not have care to undo properly. You know. I'm going to suffer a bit, but this is Sparta. So, come on order paid. Good. Order service. Back to the order service. No more events. No more magic events moving in my code. This order service over here. Back to the. Can I do right-click, Git, show history for selection? I think I can. And this used to look like this. Thank you, Git. Almost done. Am I done? Am I done? Almost. On order paid. I think I blew up the wrong one. I made the mess. I made a complete mess. So let's try again. In the order service, I created this on order paid. This, I want to come back to how it looked. A method. Oh, come on. What's the easiest way out? History. Here, get. This, I think that should work. Okay. Payment service. Yes, I have the wrong import. All right. And am I done? Please compile. Please build. People are watching. So people here, not event, but order paid. Order service, order paid. Good. And I think I'm done. I should see again the cycle, right? Cycle, yes. Cycle is back. Cycle is back. Now, in this exact form of cycle, I'm going to do the next thing. I'm going to take the order service, go to it, and say, let me extract an interface, which I'm going to put in the shipping called very inspired I, in which I'm going to put on order paid this. Refactor, yes. In IntelliJ, I trust. OK, run the test. After lunch, this probably doesn't make sense. You don't understand why this is green, but this is why I commit. Look here. It works. So we have an interface on one side implemented on the other side, and this can invert the dependencies between two packages, just like dependency inversion in solid principle goes. So, oh, I forgot to show something very fun. In the same test, generate documentation? What is that? We just extracted the shipping module, right? What do you think this is? This is a diagram of module dependencies, which is generated automatically by spring-modulith based on your code base. It extracts this out, and it says, let me rerun the tests to generate again the diagram. OK, let's open it again. And I should see here the shipping module I just extracted. Shipping module. No, so payment. The payment module. The order uses the payment, you see? So I have an overview of what my modules, of the dependencies between my modules. And this is generated by this spring-modulith thing. And there are some links over there with introduction to spring-modulith if you want to learn more. There are two more things that spring-modulith offer, and with that I'm going to end talking about spring-modulith because it's a technology, it's not an architecture, it's just a technology. Application module test can boot up that part of Spring that has to do with that module, with those entities and those services alone, much faster. Application module listener allows you to send you events asynchronously between modules, and the events get persisted in between while they wait, written in the database. It's a kind of a queue, if you want. So, you said you didn't know what RQnit is. What do you think this does? Done? Done, huh? 3 more seconds, I think we're done. So the classes, the packages that come after my app, anything below it, should not depend on each other except dependencies going to the API. Make sense? And this is a unit test that can run. You don't need spring-modulith, that's my point. You can do this with RQnit. And it's basically available in all the other languages today. Right? One every 2 teams I meet, they knew already about RQnit. It's becoming mainstream. It's becoming mainstream. And look at this one. How many violations do I have? Less than 33. You know what the tech lead does next sprint? 20. Next sprint, 15. So you can progressively slice through your code base with this fitness, architectural fitness function. This is how they are referred to. So you can progress through decoupling slices from one another. Spring-modulith, but if you really want to take things very seriously, you probably would go for separate build modules. The modules I've seen in the wild, they are here. But also probably because RQnit wasn't there when they started. Now, this move from packages to build modules, you should only do it after you have modules that pass the architectural test. I'm going to take one more chance with you guys here. Here. Commit. Optimize the import. Optimize the import. And one day I had some spare time, and I wrote a little main class. Main. Let me run this and hope for the better. Let's see. It asks, did you optimize the import? Yes. This silly program just broke my packages into separate Maven modules. Do you see this? These are Maven modules with POM and everything. If you leave me 1 minute, but I won't keep you for that, I will commit this compiling. So from packages to Maven module, done. This is not the problem. The problem is the decoupling, finding the proper boundaries, decoupling the code properly, and so on. So once you are there, you can go to Maven modules, or Gradle. What do you gain from it? First of all, you have stronger, they can't just disable a rule or add an exception, right? Also, you get cleaner suggestions from your editor. If you control space in one of the modules, you won't find classes from other modules, you see? You are scoped to your compilation unit. You can decide to use Jasper reports while the other module refuses to use Lombok. Why would you do that? OK, so that's what you gain, plus the fact that you can basically release, you can release part of the modules. For example, for your NHS client, you can have some customizations that you package inside this module that you only include in the build for NHS. Make sense? And then this is a paid feature that some purchased, some not. Now, cyclic dependencies, we've seen them. And they made our spring-modulith blow up, and they will make the build blow up if they were Maven modules. You can't have 2 Maven modules depending circularly to one another. okay? So I have this slide which I'm a bit, let's have it. It's pretty funny, really. What do you do if you split two modules and you realize that the two modules are extremely tightly interdependent? You heard it before. Make sense? You can always change your mind. Perhaps if you picked the wrong boundaries, try again in a different way. Perhaps now you'll be more lucky. What do you do if you find one module using string utils from the other module? And this causes a cycle. Do you have string utils? Of course. What do you do with the utility? You put it where? In the library. Give me a name of the module. In what module would you move string utils? Not API, shared. Something util, something bad, right? Something common, something shared, okay? Now, when you modularize a backend, very often there is in front of you a monolithic front-end, which wants to use endpoints that it used yesterday. So what can you do in that case? You can leave behind an entry module that would pick data from this module, aggregate it together, and send it to the client. It's like an API gateway, if you want, an aggregator, if you want. What do you do if one module needs to notify another module that something interesting has happened? Throw an event. What do you do if you want to customize a part of a flow for a certain client? Expose an interface that the other implement. The stuff that we did, the second solution to the cycle. And there is one more solution to this problem. Two modules depend on each other, right? What you can do, I mean, the calls that they do to each other, they do only to their public API. So one solution is to grab the public API, pull it up, so then the modules don't depend on each other, they depend on the APIs, like this. Make sense? That also works. These are basically some integration strategies between the modules that you can see in real life, okay? That you can expect to see. Now, we mentioned here the shared module, so let's spend a moment here. If the shared module contains 70% of your code, we have a problem. Good. So we want to extract out of the shared module as much as we can to make smaller, let's say, common security, common Kafka, smaller modules out. All right. Let me just, time is a bit pressing, so I'm gonna dive into here. I want to tackle this one. Suppose you decoupled the code. Next step is decoupling data. Modules should have private tables. Make sense? How do we get there? Because initially, modules, code in the monolith reads and writes every table. This is extremely bad, because if everyone can read and write in tables, once you wrote some valid data, when you read it back from there, God knows what you get back. Make sense? You cannot trust your database anymore. Next step is one module to write, many to read. That's going to be the most painful step, because it's going to force you to split tables in two. There was a product, now we have inventory items and catalog products. Okay? But the moment that other modules can read from your tables, we have another issue. If you alter table, they blow up. You see the point? You don't have ownership on those tables anymore. If you change it, they explode. And that's not fun. So the place you want to go is to have tables that are owned by modules, that are private to those modules. Now, I have 2 more minutes, so I want to get to this. There are some weaknesses in Modultith. One of the weaknesses is the fact that we all run in the same process. And if one of these modules over here rolls back a transaction, if this guy over here rolls back a transaction that it got from this guy, it basically blew up the transaction that came from another module. So one inconsistency, one error in one module can break the transactions everywhere, okay? So if you, that's one problem. Plus, remember the previous talk about resource starvation? If there's a bug in there, starving the JDBC connection pool, you're dead. Deadlocks, Spring is huge, and OpenAPI is pretty impressive if you look at it. So look, once you are there, once you are in a Modultith, the next step would be microservices. What are the steps to get there? First of all, you need to slice through the persistence to have isolated tables from one another, right? To drop the foreign keys, stop transactions from changing two schemas at once, then use separate threads per module. These are the recipes in here. And if at any point the business panics, you can always undo and stick back and get back to safety. You don't commit yourself to eventual consistency, to resilience, to latency from the start. Creating new projects is the easy part. The hard part is consistency, performance, and that's what Modular Monolith allows you to do. It's the safest and cheapest way to split a monolith, and it could be a valid alternative on the long run if your problem is not some scalability, availability, but just humongous business complexity. For very complex domains, modular monoliths are a really good alternative. So, are you sure you really need microservices? Okay? With that, I need to end. So thank you very much for your attention, and I'm here if you want to chat more about this.